Hi friends, and welcome to today's Tuesday travel blog, where every Tuesday I post a new video about the cool things that I've done and the fun things that I've seen as I travel cross country in my RV. Don't forget to click like, subscribe, and the bell icon so you can get notified of all of my videos. Today's Tuesday travel blog is about Route 66. Route 66, otherwise known as the Mother Road, starts in Chicago, Illinois. It travels south towards Oklahoma and then heads out west and ends at the Santa Monica Pier in California. The official origin of Route 66 is that it started off as a federal aid highway project in 1921. An initial assessment of roads back during that time period showed that majority of them were just kind of dirt roads and were very difficult to travel. Many of them were unpaved. Projects started so commerce and travel would be easier from one side of the country to the other. With the onslaught of the automobile coming out, it was a natural rise to Americans wanting to take their cars out on an adventure, and this road became the number one route to do so. Now, eventually, the U.S. started the interstate highway system. The old Route 66, a lot of it has kind of become engulfed and entwined into U.S. Route 40. And you can no longer tell one from the other. There are parts where Route 66 still diverges from Route 40, but for the majority of it, you are riding on the interstate. And while technically Route 66 was decommissioned, or you can say the name was dropped in 1985, it still lives on very strong. It becomes one of the most popular routes for anybody to travel. I recently traveled cross country in my RV, and I traveled a large portion of Route 66. I picked it up just outside Oklahoma, traveled across the country to California, and kind of diverted from the trail in Barstow, California as I started to head north. So I didn't quite make it to the end at Santa Monica Pier, but I did travel a large portion of it. So this video is going to be all about some of the fun, more unique places that I visited along the route. So be sure to stay tuned and see America's Trail. So as I noted, I picked up Route 66 in Oklahoma City. And while I was visiting the Oklahoma State Fair, I met some folks from the Oklahoma Historical Society, and they directed me to the Route 66 Museum in Clinton, Oklahoma. It's not out of the way, and I highly recommend this museum. Not very expensive to get in there. When I was there, it was only about $7. And it's a very interactive exhibit that kind of takes you through the decades from the beginning in the 1920s, building the road, moves you through the decades, the music changing as you go from one decade to another, the automobiles. It would showcase a lot of the memorabilia that you might see along the way, the different cars that people would drive. And it was a really great immersion kind of museum. Again, maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours to really go through and read everything. Great little place to stop as you're traveling along this route. From Oklahoma City, I traveled through Amarillo, Texas, and this brings us to Cadillac Ranch. This unique piece of art was originally designed in San Francisco, but had the backer, the one who gave the funds, was from Amarillo. And he wanted a sculpture. He wanted an art design that baffled the tourists. Well, he certainly got one. This roadside attraction is just in the middle of this big open area. There's this big open field. There's nothing there. And it's a bunch of Cadillacs buried nose deep. And it's a tribute to the fin of the Cadillac and how that has kind of evolved. First designed in 1974. And the design goes from the 1949 Club sedan to the 1963 Sedan DeVille. They've been stripped. There's nothing left of these Cadillacs. And they are just now painted in this day glow paint. You can actually buy spray paint right on site. There's like a little food truck that you can get your spray paint and your soda while you're there. and just have fun painting these Cadillacs. Nothing more than just half buried Cadillacs sticking out of the ground, and they are beautiful. It is well worth the stop, I think, to see these art pieces that used to look like cars, but today, nothing more than a passersby love. And you can just imagine the number of people who have stopped here among the decades to tag this art. You don't need to spend a lot of time here. I would, if you were going to add Cadillac Ranch onto your agenda, you're maybe looking at a half an hour at most, but definitely worth a good time to stop, stretch your legs, and just see something really fun. Let's get back in the car and keep heading west. Leaving Amarillo, my next stop was Albuquerque, New Mexico. Albuquerque is a beautiful city, and I have a whole video just on that I will link here below in the comments. Originally, Route 66 ran north-south through Albuquerque, connecting Santa Rosa, Santa Fe, and Albuquerque. It wasn't until 1937 that the more east-west orientation of Route 66 that we know today began in Albuquerque. Now, as Albuquerque started as a small Pueblo village in the 1700s, which was then taken over by the Europeans, it was really the building of the railroad and of Route 66 that brought in all the extra tourism through the Dust Bowl, all the extra travelers, and really saw a boom in this city. When you're in Albuquerque, be sure you check out the Indian Pueblo Cultural Center that tells you about the heritage of the city as well as the peoples that lived there. Old Town with more than 100 different stores and restaurants, and the petroglyphs that go back to even further than the origin of the city. The next leg of my journey finds me leaving Albuquerque, New Mexico, and heading towards Arizona. But before you get into Arizona, you will pass the Continental Divide. What is that, you ask? Well, in simple terms, a Continental Divide is a natural boundary that divides the river systems. So the Continental Divide runs north-south, and everything on one side flows to the Pacific, everything on the other side flows to the Atlantic. So as you're leaving New Mexico into Arizona, you start entering into the Pacific watershed. Stop, get out, and take a look. But let's keep going as we head next to the Petrified Forest National Park. Kind of sitting in the middle of what seems like nowhere, this old 1932 Studebaker still marks a part of the Route 66, also dotted with old telephone poles. The only national park in America that still preserves a portion of the original road. Back in the late 1920s and 30s, this road was the only access to the park. But what a cool thing to be able to drive into the middle of this park and really just see a true section of the road that has been untouched for so many years. You'll definitely want to take some time to stop and see the Painted Desert, which is one of the more beautiful natural sites along Route 66. And you can find that within the Petrified Forest National Park. For a more in-depth look at Petrified Forest National Park, I've also linked that video below. Leaving Holbrook and continuing west, my next stop was Winslow, Arizona. This is an absolutely must stop for anybody traveling Route 66. Winslow, Arizona is an adorable town filled with lots of shops and restaurants, and most famously is the Corner, where you can stand on the corner in Winslow, Arizona, which was made famous by the Eagles song, Take It Easy. And yes, they do have a flatbed Ford there for you to take your picture with. Such great people there to meet. It's a lot of fun to mill around. There's always great music, people hanging around to talk with. Winslow, Arizona is definitely a highlight for Route 66 travel. Leaving Winslow, Arizona, my next stop was Williams, Arizona, the last town to be bypassed by I-40, but still contains an original portion of Route 66. Williams still maintains a lot of that kind of Western frontier feel mixed in with your Route 66 memorabilia, ranging mostly from the decades of the 40s, 50s, and 60s. This town has Route 66 written all over it. Shopping, dining, lodging, everything is still very much dedicated to the Mother Road. And if you want to have a great feel for what that time of America was all about, this is the place to stop. Williams, Arizona is only about an hour south of the Grand Canyon. It's the only location where you can get on the train to take it to the Grand Canyon, or you can just drive the hour to get there yourself. So while the Grand Canyon doesn't exactly sit on Route 66, I highly do recommend the detour to go see this amazing natural park. One of the more cuter, smaller towns on Route 66 is Oatman, Arizona, found just west of Williams. Oatman first started as a gold mining town. Rumored that millions of dollars worth of gold were found in this area, and it was part of the gold rush that just expanded everything. In the 1930s, it was estimated over 10,000 people lived in the Oatman area. Today, the town is super small, maybe about a little over 100 people live there, filled with lots of shops, artists, unique jewelry, and burros that just love to roam the area. You can buy feed and you can feed them. This is definitely one of those towns that has maintained pretty much probably exactly what it looked like, even if just a little bit more modern, but definitely maintains what it looked like back in the 30s when Route 66 was at its most popular. There are two ways to get into Oatman. One is from Kingsman, Arizona. That road is going to be fairly straight, mostly paved. The other road comes from Bullhead City's area, which I was staying in Bullhead City, Arizona at the time. So I took the road that was a little more gravel, not paved at all. Do not recommend that route unless you have some sort of a four-wheel drive vehicle. Definitely enter Oatman from the Kingsman, Arizona side. Keeping in mind that the nearest gas station is about 15 minutes from Oatman. But that really helps maintain that small feel of this town. There are no gas stations, there are no banks. It is a very small area and it is adorable. Back on the road again, leaving Oatman, Arizona, heading towards California. Between Needles and Barstow, California, is the Mojave Desert, a large stretch with nothing around. It is truly the middle of the desert, and this is where I saw the most expensive gas. What you would see there today is what you would have probably seen back in the 1930s. There is nothing like Route 66 in America. Nostalgia is powerful along this road. It really allowed Americans to leave those congested cities and kind of spread out and make America in those middle areas really what it is today. I'm so happy that I was able to experience this part of America's history and to see so much of it that is preserved today. Route 66 truly is America's highway. I appreciate you traveling along with me. Be sure to check out all my other videos, and I will see you next Tuesday.